All right. I don't know how many of you keep an eye on international news, but Press TV, and I think this is just recently. I was just watching Press TV and on YouTube, but I've seen, I believe it was France 24, as well as Telesur and RT, and I think DW also reported on it about the rising threats and tensions between the United States, Russia, China, and Iran. Obviously, we know about Iran, but following this, Press TV has just posted that the U.S. government has officially put China, Russia, and Iran as a national security threat. And I'm surprised not to see Venezuela on there. Um, but the but if that is actually true, and knowing what I know about the geopolitical military placements of our military bases and our fleet, our naval fleet, being placed within that region, uh, this is very alarming, especially with the tit for tat arrests of people on the U.S. Arrests a bunch of people. The Chinese, the Russians arrest some people. Remember that there was that recent Huawei, the arrest of that CFO of Huawei, and then the Chinese retaliated, and then there was an arrest of several Russian nationals in the United States, including that female. I can't remember her name. Um and the Russians have done for tit for tat. Never mind the sanctions that have been forced through, even though Trump, and I don't like Trump at all, but at least he didn't want to put sanctions on Russia. Now, I don't. There are probably other reasons why, but still, that was a good move, and that's a move that shouldn't happen. But Trump did it anyways, and that's because we have a out of control and insane criminal organization calling itself government. And when I talk about government, I'm talking about all of it. I'm talking about all the agencies. I'm talking about the politicians. I'm talking about the presidency. I'm talking about the state uh, governments as well. And I'm also talking about the media. There's too much, like what happened with Iraq, and there's strong indications. I don't know how many of you know about Russia sending bombers to Venezuela, but you probably haven't also heard about the fleets, naval fleets, and naval assets being sent into the region of Venezuela. Um, and it's not just the U.S., but the Europeans are also doing it, and they're being hit within traffic of commercial vessels. Um, so you have that, and then you have I think like something like 60 or 70% of the U.S. fleet in the region of the South China Sea, and what's happening in Ukraine, uh, and the ramping up with the trade war and everything else, and the rhetoric. China has just recently lobbed some basically warnings at the United States and the Europeans who back the United States. Uh, and Xi Jinping is taking somewhat of a harder line. Um, then the Iranians have been doing the same thing, and the Russians have been doing the same thing. This is there's an interesting video I saw some years back, and it was a gentleman who worked in the intelligence field, and he spoke. Oh, not only in the intelligence field, but he was also had an ex CEO. I forget the CEO, but basically the CEO basically backed up what the intelligence officer, this ex-intelligence guy, was talking about on a video. You can't find it anymore because I actually had it on. I actually had it on archive in my YouTube, but it's been deleted. But anyways, the this gentleman had said that that the that World War III was coming, and that it would be something that the U.S. and the Western nations were pushing, and he named off a myriad of things, as well as giving you context and all sorts of other stuff. But he had mentioned specifically what happened recently in Brazil with the Bolsonaro, the right wing guy in Bolsonaro. And the thing is I posted a comment on that this was just another um, regime change initiated by the United States, and and at the time I wasn't even thinking about this video I had seen and what this guy had said, and it follows. It is so prescient because it follows almost exactly what what he's been saying, and Venezuela from 5 years back has been arming the shit out of everybody in the country. And then there's Maduro, the recent attempt on his life with the drone attack. Um, and not that far back, there was a drone that exploded in there, malfunctioned, and it exploded. And but it was said it was an attempt on his life. So you got all of that, and but going back to this video, he had said that basically that that a right wing government would take place in Brazil, and that because of all the regime change and all the and the U.S. always wanting to make sure that there were people that followed U.S. policy and U.S. Wants, and so we have that, and we have an extreme right winger in Brazil, and this guy absolutely hates Venezuela or any other nation that is left leaning, socially left leaning, and so and in South America, and so you have that, and then you have Colombia and everything else. So it looks like there's a ramping up, and then you got to consider that we have now troops at the border, and there are troops that are actually. There was been reports that there are actually troops, U.S. troops, not just at the Mexico border, but actually in South America. And then Bolsonaro just recently announced that he would allow U.S. bases in Brazil. So, and the Russians have been invited in, the Chinese have been invited in, the Iranians have been invited into Venezuela. So you take all this and put it together and think about it and put it together. And considering the rhetoric that's coming from the United States, as well as what's happening in Europe with the same Russiagate crap in Europe, the British are saying, Russia influenced the French, the Germans, you name it. They're all doing this carbon copy, and this is a, this is very likely the start of World War III. And so, if you have any kids who are legal age to join the military, tell them no. Um, If you have family or friends that are in the military, tell them to get the hell out. Dishonorably, honorably, I don't care. Tell them to get the hell out. Um, this is this is really, really dangerous. It's not like we don't have enough problems with the climate genocide and the eco genocide worldwide. We have to deal now with um, starting a global war, and that's just gonna fuck it up even more. And so I think I mentioned something like you know that our generations and our viability for life is going to be way under 20 2100 or the 22nd century. Um, there was a gentleman who's on YouTube. He's a climate scientist, and he makes a prediction that along with a large consensus that we won't even make it to 2040, um, let alone 2100. So and starting a global war, well, that will probably cut it down to less than 2030, and that's not very far off. So um, keep an eye on what's going on, uh, and as I said, I don't really pay attention to. I don't like to pay attention to Western corporate propaganda, but I think uh, I think we best keep an eye on that uh, because unfortunately, even they do sometimes give tidbits uh, that that shed some light. And so, anyways, it's looking really, really bleak and dangerous, and I'm hoping sanity will insert itself. But I don't think that will happen. Not with the insane criminals who run uh, run our quote unquote government, and it's like as Bo and many others, it's got to be a community effort, and we've got to do locally. But unfortunately, there are certain things that we must pay attention to that goes beyond local community because let's face it, we don't want a global world war. And unfortunately, if this global world war happens, United States is not going to go. We in the United States will not go unscathed because it will bleed in to U.S. and we will have cash. We will have blood in the streets, and we will have. And I've made videos about this before, and unfortunately, it's getting really, really dangerous. And so that's why we do need to pay attention to what our governments are doing and what our government is doing uh, and what the corporate overlords and the shareholders that own these corporations are doing. Uh, you know, our biggest enemy is the government, and it is the corporate criminals and the backers of those corporations. And so I keep saying this, and there's a lot of people that are other people are saying it. That's because they're waking up and understanding. And so um, that's all I got. Hopefully, uh, this will get you to pay more attention to what the international media, and I don't care the fact that the corporate media and our criminal and the criminals in government are saying that it's Russia, it's China, it's Iran. Uh, uh, I we have to pay attention to international news, even those that are made to look like the bad guys, like RT and all those. I keep an eye on international Al Jazeera, RT, CGNT, Al Jazeera, Telesur, all these, as well as Press and France 24, DW, and Euronews and all the other. And you know, France 24 is the corporate media, and um and Euronews is corporate media. Um, so, but they do give some insights, and I have a tendency to see more insights from RT, from Al Jazeera, from Telesur, Press, even TRT, which is um, a Turkish network. Um, so keep an eye on these things, and just give a really a small grain of salt to corporate media. If it's a Western one, it's corporate media. If it's a U.S. one, it's corporate media. It's criminal propaganda 101, and but place all that together, and you get a good picture of what's happening, and hopefully that will um, keep you informed, so that we'll be informed, because being informed is the first step to tackling the problem. And World War III is not a problem we want to have to tackle. All right, thanks.